When I greet you and all the participants and those following the seminar organized by CSID, which is an opportunity to establish dialogue between Tunisians and those who are following what is happening in Tunisia, particularly in these difficult times through which our country is going. Mrs. Samira will means that I have to summarize what I have to say because I agree with most of what she has said. Mr. Qais Said, yes, he came to power after free democratic elections rather than atop a tank. However, Mr. Qais Said, after 1.5 years of coming to power through elections, has used military force to abrogate the constitution of the Second Republic that was adopted by Tunisians following free elections and broad dialogue and consultation to establish a new social contract, and on the basis of which Mr. Said himself has been elected. Through this coup against the constitution and against legitimacy, which happened by exploiting a real crisis that was in Tunisia and the failure of previous governments to resolve social and economic problems and to achieve at least some of the aspirations of the Tunisian people. He exploited this crisis not to support democracy or reform the situation, but to usurp all powers and to dismantle all institutions that we had succeeded, despite everything, succeeded to build in Tunisia. And we were an exception in the region, and we hope to be a model in our region, in the Arab Muslim world. Mr. Said, did his coup succeed? We can say that it has succeeded to destroy and undermine the constitutional independent institutions and to undermine the principle of separation and balance between powers by suspending the constitution and through his presidential decree number 117, which gave him all powers, allowing him to rule by decree which cannot be challenged, which went further than previous dictators in our country or our neighboring countries. He has succeeded to weaken the Tunisian state, to take Tunisia from an acute crisis to the brink of disaster. Now, 1.5 years after the coup, everybody agrees that our country is going through a severe financial crisis. There is an economic crisis that threatens the production systems in Tunisia. Tunisia is facing bankruptcy, and according to international reports and experts, Tunisia may be unable to repay its debts or provide the necessary resources for its budget. Mr. Said has succeeded to unite all Tunisians against this dark tunnel into which he has pushed the country. His government, which has issued a budget recently, has been rejected by all unions, by the Chamber of Commerce, by all accountants, by parties, by civil society organizations. They have said that this government lacks any vision for reforming the economy, and through its budget, it shows that it lacks any vision for Tunisia, and this budget will deepen the crisis that Tunisia is witnessing. Unfortunately, Tunisia is a country where citizens are living as refugees in their own countries. Tunisians cannot find the basic commodities, which was something we had never experienced Now people are fearing for their rights and freedoms following excessive restrictions on freedom of expression and association, because Mr. Sayed has restricted Tunisians' right to freedom of movement, to travel without any judicial rulings. He has prosecuted judges, lawyers, bloggers, and activists, and he has issued his infamous decree, which threatens to destroy the last remaining freedom, that is the freedom of expression. He wishes, in the face of the growth of opposition, political and popular opposition to his coup, he wishes to muzzle all voices. This coup does not possess any conditions for success. Instead of adopting dialogue to face the problems that Tunisia is facing, Tunisia is now facing sure disaster and facing bankruptcy. The question today is, the question is not whether the coup has succeeded, but the question is whether this coup can continue. And the answer, in my view, is rather complex, because it depends on the will of the opposition forces, the democratic forces, to reach consensus on a roadmap and unify their positions, as Mrs. Samira has mentioned. The oppositions agree on the objective and on calling for a return to democracy, but what is required today for ending this coup is to move forward to unify their ranks, and the opposition, while preserving its diversity, is required to move beyond that, especially following the message sent by the Tunisian people in the so-called elections, where over 90% turned their backs to this farce. The civil forces are called to not wait for the president to call for his own dog. All people for what is required is for political forces to meet for preliminary consultations in order to prepare for a national dialogue, to agree on a roadmap and a practical program for returning to democracy with all its details and steps and phases. We must send a message to Tunisians to give them hope that these parties that have been demonized by Mr. Qais Said, whose leaders have been accused of treason, they are called upon to meet and unite themselves on what is in the interest of the Tunisian people. We do not deny our responsibility, particularly all the political disputes that were widened. However, now wisdom calls for moving beyond these disputes and focusing on saving Tunisia. And this is what would ensure the end of the coup. Today, Tunisians who have turned their backs to the coup are waiting for a clear political proposal that will pave the way to the restoration of democracy and for dealing with the economic and social difficulties, and to establish a national salvation government that will be tasked with the ending of the severe crisis facing the country, and which will focus on a new transition phase that will focus on uniting Tunisians, on activating the economy and leading the country towards free democratic elections based on the 2014 constitution, which can be amended through a national dialogue to ensure legal and political reforms that will ensure a new presidential and parliamentary early elections 2 days before the anniversary of the Tunisian revolution that had inspired the entire world, where a revolution which achieved unprecedented changes in Tunisian society. As we prepare to celebrate and commemorate this anniversary in activities and gatherings which will be the foundation for the uniting of the opposition, after which we need to start a new page and we need to address Tunisians and the whole world to show that there are political forces. There is no vacuum in Tunisia, as there are forces that can agree and can save the state and can reform the Tunisian state. Regarding the position of the security, the interior ministry and the army in protecting democracy and the democratic transition, I say briefly that their role should be similar to that in the democratic nations. They should be neutral, and we should aim for them to be institutions that are tasked with protecting Tunisians and protecting freedoms, particularly to protect freedoms and impose the application of the law on everybody. And it is in their interests not to be implicated and involved in politics. The president, however, only has these institutions to impose his political vision, but we should not in any way involve this institution in our political disputes. We call upon them to maintain their neutrality, to continue to be institutions of the Tunisian state and the Tunisian people, and to protect it. And just as they did during the revolution, where the army was one of the guarantees of the Tunisian revolution, we should maintain that neutrality. Time is up. If you can, in 1 minute, regarding unity of parties, is it possible? I say it is required and it is necessary, and this is our responsibility. And I believe, and in the Republican Party, we are seeking to provide all the necessary conditions to ensure the unity of democratic parties, all those parties that wish to restore democracy and the rule of law and institutions. Regarding the international community, yes, in Tunisia, we are an open country that has relations with everyone, and the world is watching Tunisia. What is required of those following the situation in Tunisia? It is to preserve cooperation and openness, because the mechanisms of the Cold War are over, and what is needed is to support Tunisia politically and economically, and not to sacrifice principles and values of democracy and human rights for the sake of immediate interests that may not even be guaranteed. What is required, or for the international community, is to deal with Tunisia as a country that is in need of economic support, but it also needs support for its democratic process and to ensure the restoration of democracy, which will guarantee the stability of our country. Thank you, and I apologize for one. I have a question. Does your party call for the return to the 2014 constitution? in the face of the constitution, the principal document that symbolizes legitimacy is the 2014 constitution. If we let go or accept any contravention of this constitution, we would have embraced the coup. There are many initiatives for coming out of the crisis, but which we welcome, but any initiative that tries to exclude political parties or that is not on the basis of commitment to the 2014 constitution or tries to address their initiatives to the president, they will only be a waste of time, precious time of the Tunisian people. The president is an obstacle in the path of the restoration of democracy, and we should elaborate our initiatives without the inclusion of the